Hello everybody. I thought very long and hard before I make this video, but I do believe it's one that has to be made, and you're going to have to bear with me because it's probably going to be quite a long video. I want to deal today with the ongoing events of Moroccan Animal Aid in Morocco, and also the new laws that are being introduced that affect stray animals, particularly dogs, but they also affect equines. So if I could move on to MAA. Some of you may remember that if you do follow them, that very recently the two founders of MAA, who have now been deported for a year, both said that they are now resigning all their positions in MAA because they can't continue. However, they're still taking donations, both through a charity in France and also naming it MAA, and still arranging for the two sites that they rented before they were deported still to operate. And one of them houses dogs, of course, the other houses equines. Now, when they put that post out, my view was there was absolutely no point me approaching them. They said that they were looking for someone who would maybe take over MAA and run it properly. And I knew they wouldn't even talk to me. I do know that various people did speak to them and offered to help, but on the basis that they would take all the dogs and MAA would be closed down. It no longer exists anyway. So it's an absolute farce that they keep telling you that it is. And obviously that offer was not accepted, and they are now still gathering donations. People I know, and I know a lot of them, who reported the issues at MAA to me a long time ago and used to support MAA and no longer do, they're all blocked. And what they're doing again is building up their donor base through social media. And we know how much money they raised before and the problems that that created. And I stand by all the photographs I produced, which they acknowledge was correct, where animals were treated in the most inhumane conditions and were very sick as a result. Now, I've been sent something that's recently been posted by Fanny. Fanny, if you remember, was the woman in France. Lucy was the woman in Australia. It's my opinion and my view, and I could be quite wrong, that I think Lucy has accepted what has happened and is not really pressing or pushing anything now. But Fanny certainly is. Listen to this. And finally, this is Fanny. Finally, for my birthday, my last wish is that either we find someone or something to take 300 of our dogs out of 500. We will commit to gradually take them to Mektoub in France. She's established a shelter in France. What a surprise. And then she goes on to say, or that there is a financial miracle, a sponsor, a grant, anything to allow us to be able to have our resources back and be able to employ more people, fix the facilities, stock food, have CCTV again, pay landlords and staff on time, deworm and boost the whole shelters, pay the vets fees, create TNVR campaign, support rescuers on the street. Is the woman crazy? I'm sorry to put it in those terms. They are no longer registered in Morocco. And my real worry is, and I think I have fairly positive evidence, is that the officials down there who agreed initially to help us take the equines, I think there is a lot of corruption in the area. So this video is very much directed not only at all of you out there who take an interest in what we do and what happens in Morocco, but also the government, people connected to the royal family. I don't criticise any of you, but I do at local level. And I hope Qaids watch this, because I'm not afraid of speaking out. Why I think this affects the new laws is this. I'll go into part 2 of what I want to say to you. You will have read in the papers and in social media that the government is introducing new laws into Morocco. It isn't an act yet, it's still at the parliamentary stage, although at local level you think it was, because I'm sure there are people going around fining folk. But the reality is that they have tried in this bill to, in many ways, imitate what happens in the West. Of course, that's much more difficult here. I think the intentions were good, and there are still some things that need amending, because as it's emerged, it very much says that anyone feeding or watering stray animals will be liable to a fine. I don't think for a moment that they intend to fine, ladies in the street who feed local cats. This is directed at associations. I know that because we were told that a few years ago. And what they are doing is saying that animals who are found should be taken to a registered association. It's okay for equines because they come here, but dogs, there aren't enough established in Morocco that are run properly. And they're laying down very strict criteria on the people that take those animals in must vaccinate and sterilise within a given period of time. They must be cared for properly. And an indication has been given that grants may be available. So I'm going to touch on that. I have a very good friend who lives out in the country and has done for many, many years and has 5 dogs in her house and was approached by the local Qaid and everyone hanging on, saying there'd been a complaint about the barking. It turned out there wasn't a complaint about the barking. It was a neighbour who didn't like my friend very much. And they bombarded her and were threatening to take all the dogs away. And it's been a nightmare for her. And she has been given false information by people who purport to be activists and know what's happening, but still get the law wrong. Now, my friend is not unintelligent. And she went along to ONSA, which is the regulatory body in Morocco. This is just an example, and said to them, could they knock my door down and take my dogs away? And they said, absolutely not. The only basis that local officials would have for taking a dog away from a private person is if it bites someone or if it hasn't been sterilised and vaccinated. I think they just said vaccinated. But what people out there who are running campaigns are purporting to happen and what is actually the law are two different things altogether. Now, I'm with them completely in that I do think the government needs to look again at the law, and they should not be looking to penalise kindness and compassion from people in the streets. But of course, the burning thing that has been happening and they're striving to correct is bringing the associations into line. I was told at the highest level that as an association here, we have nothing to fear. We're very open, transparent, professional. All our returns go in. But that certainly doesn't happen in all the so-called sanctuaries in Morocco. And there's a very real risk that people think if they get a spot of land and take some rescued animals, money will drop from heaven to care for them. It doesn't. You will know that what we have done is set up a charity abroad, a charity in Morocco, and it's a charity abroad that funds the charity in Morocco and helps abandoned equines in Morocco. But we're not licensed to take dogs. And talking to my friend about this, I think she hit the nail on the head. I really do. I think what happened to her when officials turned up and were surprised there were only 5 dogs in the house, all this has grown out of the problems with MAA. Because when the officials went into MAA, they had the equivalent of 300 dogs in what is a private house. And there's an assumption that us as Europeans who say that we're saving animals are saving them all in private houses. So they're attempting very hard to regulate associations, and I am 100% with them. I couldn't say that more strongly, because that's the only way you will avoid corruption. And another thing that's happened, you know, we've had a visit, and people concerned will remain nameless. I wouldn't do that to them. But it's people who are Moroccan and have been involved in not associations, but let's say on the fringes of government here, etc. They came today for advice for setting up a sanctuary for dogs and wondered if we would support them. They saw the boys and they're coming back to see me. And what the boys said to them very clearly is that if you set up a sanctuary, you will not get the money from Morocco, because the reality is the people who are very generous to us and support us don't have much money. And people who are very wealthy here don't go out of their way to support charities. So we rely very much, and the bulk of our finance comes from abroad. I've said that for a long time, and that won't be new to anyone. So if you're going to be successful here, you have to set up a charity abroad and one here and have some linking between the two. We're governed by the Charity Commission in the UK. And having a discussion afterwards, it dawned on us that having seen the new law, there are going to be a lot of people who think, well, if they set up a refuge or a sanctuary, the government will condone the animals being sent to them and give them grants. What a mistake. Do you remember we tried to do that in Marrakesh, and they were giving us so many animals, they'd have destroyed us. There was no finance behind it. And what the government has made very clear in the new law is they will support people and local authorities who have experience and show that they are doing the right thing now. They will not give grants to new organisations setting up, because this could become another business enterprise in Morocco. I think we can show quite clearly that we have superb horsemen, and we're registered to take equines, and we have standards that we maintain, and we're open to inspection. However, I was told by the men who work here, and I think they're quite right, we have to ultimately be very careful about taking any grants from local government, because in that regard we become their property. And where we have freedom to operate as we do and go and pick up any equine in need, and we feed them the best we possibly can with what money we have available, all that, if we took a grant from the government, would be governed by the government itself. So it isn't always the answer to take grants from government. And I'm sure that many people may agree with me as to what has happened in other countries. But we're in very early stages, and I do hope you understand. I can tell you that the donkey we were looking for, who was pulling a cart and very old, we've been down every day and haven't found him yet. We think the owner may well be hiding him at the moment, but we will find him. But what Ayub has done today is bring back another very old donkey that was abandoned at a building site, has very, very damaged front legs, and I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but we will certainly let you know. We'll post a video about that on our social media very soon. Now, I've been rattling on for, what does my timer say, over 13 minutes. It is a huge issue, and I will come back to it bit by bit, because there is no clear message that I can give you now, apart from what I've explained to you. The government is trying its very best to do what it can to bring in line the care of animals in Morocco. And of course, I'm always open to questions, but I will be speaking to you again soon. And thank you for listening.